Hello and welcome to Reject the Narrative. I am Vincent, the founder of rejectthenarrative.org, and I am joined today by the gubernatorial candidate for Arizona's 2022 election, the one and only, or as some call her, the greatest of all time, Kari Lake. Kari, welcome to Reject the Narrative. Thank you for joining me.
That is quite the introduction. I think I might make that mandatory for everybody who introduces me. I loved it. Thank you, Vincent. Good to be
Absolutely.
here.
So, Kari, on my website, called Reject the Narrative, I host a segment called Reject the Narrative where the premise is to examine the validity of a story, deconstruct the data, and state why you accept or reject the narrative. So, I want to share with you a headline that I found written about you, and I want you to tell me if you accept or reject the narrative and state why.
Okay, this should be fun.
All right. This is a headline written on azmirror.com on July 28th, 2021. The headline says, Democrats should not underestimate Kari Lake and her Trumpian appeal. Like Donald Trump in 2016, Lake has no experience in public service, no previous campaigns, and no public policy record. Instead, she is running on something much more intoxicating: celebrity status. So, Kari, I can't help but laugh at the audacity of the person to say that you're running on celebrity status. Do you accept or reject that narrative?
Um, I don't totally reject it. I have celebrity because I worked for 27 years in journalism. So I think what that person is trying to say is she's got name ID. People know who this woman is and they trust her, and we shouldn't underestimate her. I mean, I think they're always trying to write things in a negative light, especially when it's a conservative and a conservative woman. The media loves to attack like nothing, like a bunch of pit bulls, you know? And it's really sad because they're actually very misogynistic. I think they're anti-woman if the woman happens to be conservative. They always act like they're pro women's rights, and we've seen with some of their policies that they're not, especially when it comes to, like, the transgender sports issue. They obviously don't care about girls sports when they're pushing that kind of thing. And then they come after anybody who's female and is conservative. They treat them horribly in the media.
And so I'm happy you brought up the media and news in general. Now, you left behind a 2 decades career in the news. Why do you feel the need to enter public service?
I just really am looking at where things are going in this country. And as a mother, as a citizen, I'm really worried about the direction that our country is going and that our state is going, frankly. I fear that if we don't have a quality candidate who can win in the general election when it comes to, November of 2022, we could end up becoming a blue state and possibly a socialist state, and really become a California 2.0. And I'm not interested
We don't
in
want
that.
that.
No, not for me, not for my children, not for the future of Arizona. So I decided to jump in, and I'm really glad I did because we're doing really well. Our internal polling shows that we are beating everybody by a landslide right now. And I'm thrilled about that because it shows that what we're talking about is resonating with the voters. And we're talking about election integrity. We're talking about getting your rights back, your God-given rights back that are being taken away by the left, and all under the pretense of all this COVID mandates. They're trying to take our rights away. And people are fed up. They're tired of being dehumanized with these masks. They're tired of the government telling them they're going to have to teach their kids at home, and they're going to shut down schools and businesses and churches. They're fed up, and they're not going to do it anymore. And I don't blame them. I will be their fighter in that arena. I will fight that tooth and nail.
Now, I'm happy you say that because we need a fighter in Arizona. We need a fighter in all the states in the country, in my opinion. So, what are the top issues facing Arizona, and what actions will you take as governor if you're elected?
Well, first of all, the top issue, and this I've been speaking, Vincent, to many, many groups, and record number of people showing up at the events I'm doing. So I'm talking to hundreds and hundreds of people every week, voters of Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
The number one issue they're concerned about is election integrity. And that doesn't mean these other issues aren't important. They are. We've got big issues. We've got water issues. We have issues with shutdowns. We have these mandates that are being pushed on us. We have the defund the police movement the left is pushing. We want safety back to our streets. We want smart curriculum, not stupid curriculum. for our children. Those are all really important issues. But if we don't have fair elections, none of that will matter because we will never win another election. These elections have major problems. By the first part of September, we should have the report out. They're working on it right now, the audit report. And we need to fix our elections because we need to make sure that we can actually have an election where it's fair and the people we want can get into office. And what happened in 2020 was a debacle.
Absolutely. People need to be able to trust the integrity of the elections.
Right.
If we don't trust the integrity of the elections, we don't have a country. Similar to how if we don't have a border, we don't have a country. What's your policy with regard to the border?
I'm really concerned about what's happening at the border. We can't solve it as a state alone. We need the federal government's help. And Joe Biden has completely dropped the ball. All he has to do, which could solve this problem overnight, is reinstate President Trump's border policy. Ask any border sheriff, they will tell you it was working and it was working very well. We need Joe Biden to snap out of it and reinstate President Trump's border policy immediately. That's the only way to solve this right away. Additionally, we have billions of dollars in COVID funding, and it's coming to the states. I think we should take that COVID funding, and everyone's trying to get their hands on it, their claws into it. We need to take that COVID funding and give a big chunk of it to these sheriffs in these border counties, or all the counties that are having to deal with what's happening at the border, because there is a crisis at the border. Right now, we're seeing thousands of people pour in. Many of them are testing positive for COVID. So let's take some of that COVID money and give it to law enforcement in the name of the sheriff's departments and these border counties to start pushing back on some of this bad policy that Joe Biden is inflicting on us. The cartels are in control at the border. Joe Biden has no idea what's going on. The cartels are running the show.
Absolutely. And since you mentioned that you're getting record turnout for the events you've been at, I want to talk about some of the recent events. Last Friday, you held a rally at Arizona State University. Now, if I read the dishonest press, they're going to tell me that you held an anti-mask rally. Tell me the truth.
It's really a freedom rally. I mean, we don't want to force masks on our children. And these young adults who already had 2 years pretty much of their lives taken away from them, they lost all these experiences growing up that they should be having, were forced to have masks on, can't even learn, can't even hear their teachers because of the masks, can't communicate effectively for a virus that's 99.9% recoverable. This is ridiculous. The mask mandates were already ruled to be illegal here in Arizona because the legislature approved that. Now, a judge just said that the legislature does have the ability to enforce mask mandate. Actually, let me reword that. The legislature can ban mask mandates. The only thing is the judge said that they have to have a grace period for that law to go into effect, which would put it in effect at the end of September. This just broke today. I'm sure it'll continue working its way through the courts. But this is just about giving ourselves our God-given rights back. And we've got these universities trying to force our kids to wear masks again. They don't need to wear masks. What we need to do is tell people who are in that high-risk category, here are the 3, 4, or 5 things you can do to protect yourself. But we're not going to shut down the entire economy. We're not going to force the entire population to mask up. The people who are in high risk can take precautions for themselves, and we can keep our society up and running. We can keep our economy up and running. There's so much more risk when you shut down the economy. We see suicide rates go up. We see people lose their livelihood, have an inability to make a living, put food on the table. And people are fed up. They're not going to do it anymore. And I'm going to be the fighter for them because I'm fed up. I say the left has awoken a sleeping giant, and it's pissed off moms. And once you've pissed off mom, there's no turning back.
Yeah,
because we're coming at
the last person I would ever want to piss off is my mother. Now, I'm happy that you mentioned legislation and that some of the mask mandates were ruled unconstitutional. I mean, just in my own research, I found on the Arizona Constitution, Article 27, Section 2, it specifically states that a law or rule shall not compel directly or indirectly any person, employer, or healthcare provider to participate in any healthcare system. And healthcare system is defined as any public or private entity whose function or purpose is the management of processing of or enrollment of individuals in a healthcare system, healthcare data, or healthcare information. So it's really interesting that employers and especially public, state and other public institutions are doing things like mask mandates and vaccine mandates because I'm no legal professional, but as far as I understand it, that's a direct violation of Article 27, Section 2 of the Arizona Constitution. Now, I could be totally wrong. I'm no professional there.
I'm going to have to examine that a little closer. But you know what? I think this is the issue that brings us together. I have had hundreds and hundreds of people reach out who are medical professionals who were the heroes on the front line when all this broke. And now their employer, a hospital, medical group is telling them, get the vaccine or you're out, or we're firing you. And I think we've got a big game of chicken going on right now. I think these hospitals and these medical groups are going to push these employees to say, all right, I'll leave the job, or you'll have to fire me because I'm not going to be forced into getting something that I don't want to do. And I actually hope that everybody holds the line on this, because we need to, we have more numbers on our side. The common sense side has more numbers, but we need to be strong. We need to show courage. This is not a time, Vincent, for easy decisions. This is a time for tough decisions. And
Absolutely.
I know
we need bodily integrity as well. We need the choice to decide how to administer healthcare on ourselves. And I do find it ironic, Kari, that nurses that were heroes last year are the villains of this year.
right.
And if we really had peak hospital, people in hospitals at full capacity, if all of this was really going on, I don't think that nurses would be getting fired for not taking a shot. I don't see the rationale here for hospitals to be firing their employees, but then in the same breath say, but we're understaffed. We have too many people here. The beds are filling. I just don't understand the rationale.
Doesn't make sense.
How both narratives can play when they clash against one another.
Well, my mother was a nurse, and my sister is a nurse, and I have a niece who's a nurse. So we have nurses in our family, and they're pretty smart people. They know, they've been covering this. They know what they have to do to protect themselves. So for them to be told that they have to do this, they understand this virus. They understand viruses, and they don't feel the need for it. And I'm going to put my confidence in them. I think we should all have the choice to choose how we handle our own medical needs and our own medical privacy. We've lost our privacy, and I have a real problem with that. Enough is enough. We've got to start pushing back. And as I was telling a group of nurses when I was at a rally at the Capitol a couple of weeks ago, I said, I understand the difficulty of walking away from a job that paid well, that put food on the table. I did it. When I realized that my principles would be compromised if I did this job one more day working in the media, I realized I had to walk away. And so I understand the difficulty of that, but I think we're at a point where all these companies forcing people to try to do things against their will, people need to just start saying, I'd rather walk away. And I think we need to make some tough choices like that in this country right now, or we're going to lose our freedom.
Absolutely. And I want to shift gears a little bit. The first time that I ended up seeing you in a public setting was July 24th during Turning Point USA's rally to protect our elections featuring President Donald Trump. You were met with overwhelmingly positive reception. I've never seen anything like it. The crowd was standing, they were cheering your name, they were chanting Kari over and over. And even President Trump himself recognized this and was quoted saying that this might be a big night for you. Can you tell me a little bit about that experience and maybe provide some insight as to why the crowd reacted so positively towards you?
Thank you very much, Kari. Good job.
I still get goosebumps when you talked about it, because it was such an amazing moment. I think that it shows that my 27 years spent here covering news in Arizona, I have connected with the people of this state. And despite what the leftist activist media is saying, how they're attacking me left and right, they're worried about that. They saw that reaction and they're worried about me being the next governor, because they know I'm going to do what's right by the people of Arizona, and I'm not going to be pushing the agenda that they have been inflicting on us. And I think that a lot of these people, there were a lot of young people in the audience, they've grown up watching me since they were little. and they trust me and they respect that I walked away from a good, high-paying job because I didn't feel I could keep my integrity intact by staying there and spreading stories that were not fully truthful. So I think it's just it was a respect, and they're really thrilled that I'm running for governor. I'm getting this whenever I go out. I have got every event I do, they tell me, wow, this is a record. We've never seen this many people show up for a political speaker. People are very excited about our candidacy, and I do call it our candidacy because it's not about me. I'm just the fighter for Arizona, but this is about the people of Arizona fighting to take our rights back, getting our state back on track, preserving our Western heritage, and keeping Arizona, making it the freest state in the country.
Absolutely. That's always good to hear. Now, you're a pretty big advocate for alternative media or alternative press. And from what I understand, you've either been kind of censored or maybe deplatformed off of Twitter.
Not yet.
Not yet, but
But can you believe it, Vincent? The journalists in this town, the yellow, it's yellow journalism, by the way, from the main newspapers, which are horrible, and they're so activist. They're working for the Democrat Party. They might even be working for the CCP. Who knows? They are actively pushing to get me censored. A political candidate, they're pushing to get me censored and taken down from Twitter. That is so appalling.
right. And so what I wanted to ask you about that is Governor DeSantis of Florida, he signed into law SB 7072. I'm getting my words mixed up. I'm starting to sound like Joe Biden here. So DeSantis signed into law SB 7072, which gives the right to sue big tech for banning political candidates and implementing or imposing fines if censorship takes place. So as governor of Arizona, is this something that you're going to investigate, or would you even maybe take it a step further than DeSantis?
I loved when he did that. I mean, we have to start fighting back against these tyrants, these tech tyrants. I would definitely explore something like that. Hopefully by then we haven't all been banned, because they're going after anybody who speaks against their narrative, their agenda. And, people are reaching out to me. They're so concerned with what's happening in the state. They want me to fix things right now. And I have to remind them, look, I'm not governor right now. If I were governor, we would have a lot of these things fixed. But I have to first win the election. And that means beating my Republican opponents in August of 2022, August 2nd, 2022, and then going on to beat Katie Hobbs or whichever socialist they put on the ticket on the Democrat side. So I would absolutely do that. There's so many things I would do. I would make it, I would bring back our medical freedom. There's just a lot of things on my agenda that I feel are important for Arizona, but I first have to win the election. And we need to put pressure on our current governor, Doug Ducey, to do some of these things, do the right thing, and help us maintain our freedoms.
So with that being said, what would you do differently that Doug Ducey's currently doing? What would you do differently from him?
Wow. I don't want to just completely pick on Governor Ducey. When COVID struck, I was really happy we had a Republican governor, because we saw what happened with the Democrats. Cuomo, who's, I believe has blood on his hands for the way he handled our amazing elderly people that were forced into nursing homes that were sick. They had sick people in there, and I believe he is responsible for many of those deaths. We saw what Whitmer did in Michigan. 33% of the businesses in Michigan shut down for good because of her terrible policies that destroyed the economy and destroyed small businesses, basically. The big boxes all survived. They were doing just fine. But it was the people who invested their life savings in their business. Those are the ones that went under. So I was happy we had, at least we had a Republican, but I was not happy that he shut the state down twice. I believe he was so worried about the pressure that was put on him from the liberal mayors in Tucson, Flagstaff, and Phoenix, and that was put on from the activists and then the journalists who are also activists. They were all pressuring him to do more, shut down the state, force people to get testing, do all the stuff that was just force masks on our children. And he was so nervous about that kind of pressure. And I don't know why he didn't just tell them, hey, look it, I'm the governor, shove it. I'm going to do what's right for the people of the state. I'm not concerned about appeasing you journalists and appeasing these liberal mayors. But he just, he didn't show enough strength, in my opinion. And I don't mean to be cruel and mean. I think he's a nice person. He just didn't show enough strength at a time when we needed someone to say, this is the right thing to do, and I'm going to do it. I don't care how many people are pressuring me. Even if they're pressuring me in my own inner circle, I'm going to do the right thing.
So the last question that I want to ask you before I forget it, since we do need a fighter, what is your plan regarding the increasing federal encroachment on states' rights? And this is with regard to just about everything: Second Amendment stuff, First Amendment stuff, federal maybe not enforcing border legislation. So how would you handle that as governor?
We need to push back against the feds, especially now because the overreach is just astounding. From 3,000 miles away, our federal government is telling us when we can work, what to do with our own medical, forcing vaccines and things like that. We need to really push back, but we need a governor who's willing to be a spokesperson almost for the state. I don't see our governor out in front. I would love to see him every day. He should be down on the border as people are walking in saying, this is unacceptable. We're going to do everything in our power to stop it. I don't want to just see memos coming from the governor's office. I want him front and center in front of the cameras, pointing out the problems and pushing back against the federal government. I will do everything in my power, working with the legislature, to try to push back on the federal government's overreach into our state. I think other states are now seeing how overbearing it has become. And this is not what our founding fathers had in mind when they set up this beautiful Constitution and when they set up and created this beautiful country and this beautiful nation. This is not what they had in mind. And we need to get back kind of into that mindset of our founding fathers.
Well, absolutely. Public service at that time was not a full-time job. It was a service that you gave to the country, and once you served, you went back to your farm and your kids and your house and your wife, and
it was a sacrifice. It was a sacrifice. And I'm not doing this for the fame or the money. I've already become well known with my TV career, 30 years. This is a low paying job. The governor of Arizona doesn't make much money. If you're going into politics to get rich, or if you do become rich while you're in politics, then there's a 99.99% chance you are corrupt. You should not get rich going into politics. You should actually probably get poorer, because it is service. It's meant you're serving your community, you're serving your state, you're serving your country, and it is not meant to be a lifelong 40-year career. It's not.
Absolutely. I fully agree with that. I mean, as we saw in 2016, the Clinton Foundation, for example, was receiving donations, hundreds of millions of dollars, and then all of a sudden she doesn't win the presidential candidacy, and all the donations drop like 90%.
Right.
Which in some respects you got to look at and say, well, okay, I understand why that happened, but then you have to say, wait, do I really understand why that happened? Because what you said about
the media
corruption
probably
is
should have
brilliant.
covered that a little better.
Absolutely, they should have.
But unfortunately,
but
they
that's
were
why-
all in the tank for Hillary Clinton.
Well, exactly, and that's why I'm here. I feel this obligation to do the job that the media is not doing, which is report with integrity.
I'm so glad you're here, and you're right. We talked a little bit about it. The alternative media is going to save the free press in this country, because right now, the members of the mainstream media, corporate-run media, I mean, this just shocks me. They are pushing for censorship of Americans right now. It's appalling that anybody could call themselves a journalist while they advocate for censorship of people, of a political candidate, of somebody with differing point of view. It's appalling. They should be run out of town. They should be run out of their jobs, because they are not journalists. They are purely activists, and they know it. They really do know it. And I hope that one day programs like yours and other programs in the alternate media are going to rise up and actually become the new mainstream media. But we'll have to find a different name for it, because mainstream media, we already know what that means.
No, that name is already trashed, and we don't want it to come back.
How about honest media?
Honest
We'll call
media,
you guys the
that's-
honest media.
That's a good way of putting it. And to be honest with you, Kari, I think that the honest media is superseding the mainstream media. I mean, it's happening slowly, but I think that we're already beating them at their own game. I don't think that they really realized the power of these social media platforms, which is why they're all scrambling now to censor people that they don't agree with.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden, the weapons that they were using against us are now being used against them, and they're going, wait, this isn't fair. It's like, well, this is the game you wanted to play.
People are seeking the truth, and they're not getting it from the corporate media. And the corporate media is really dying a rapid death. The ratings are down across the board. I mean, just locally here in Arizona, I got to look. Somebody sent me some of the overnight Nielsen ratings. And you would think in a market like Phoenix that reaches almost 5 million people, you would think that the number one newscast would get what, maybe a million people watching?
Mm-hmm.
No, on this particular night, and this was very typical of what's happening in the ratings, the number one newscast had about 6,000 people watching it. One of the other newscasts had 0 people watching for a full hour. They did a full hour of news and the rating was 0. So people are not watching. They don't have the power that they try to tell people they have. They're really powerless, and they are waking up to the fact that they're powerless, and they're panicked. They are purely panicked, and that's why they're lashing out, trying to bring people down who are effective at getting the truth out. They're trying to censor those people because no one's listening to their garbage.
Absolutely. And I think that's the best note that we could possibly end it on. But Kari, please tell the audience where to find more information about your campaign, how to support you, your website, your Twitter, all that information. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. They can find me on Facebook. I don't know if they're still using Facebook at the Kari Lake. And they can find me on Twitter at Kari Lake. It's Karilake. But most importantly, they can go to my website, karilake.com, Karilake.com. And they can find where I stand on the issues. They can donate. And I really feel the need to express that I am being funded by the people of Arizona, and even some people from out of state who are so concerned about Arizona's issues that they're sending me donations. I'm not funded by the swamp, and the swamp is very deep in Arizona, very, very deep, even though we're here in the desert. So I need the real people of Arizona to stand up and make a contribution. The great thing, Vincent, is 92% of our donors, 92% of them have never made a political contribution before.
Wow.
To any politician or political group. So we are truly grassroots. People are very excited about this campaign because they know when I'm governor, I will represent the people of Arizona. I won't be representing a bunch of cronies that I owe favors to. I owe 0 political favors to anyone, and I plan to keep it that way.
Absolutely. Well, that's fantastic. Kari, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
This is Vincent for Reject the Narrative. This is Kari Lake, gubernatorial candidate for 2022 election. Any final thoughts? Any final words?
Thank you, and get out and register to vote. Register Republicans so you can vote for me August 2nd, 2022.
All right, Kari, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Ever since Microsoft purchased Skype, it sucks.